Like if you're just a memeplex, I mean, if there's just like if you're just a collection of memes,
Yeah.
and I mean, like we're all kind of like currents, like eddies in this river of ideas, right? So it's like and it seems to have structure, but there's no real boundary between that part of the flow of water and the rest. I mean, if our and I would say that much of our mind answers to this kind of description. I mean, so much of our mind has been it's obviously not self-generated, and it's you're not going to find it by looking in the brain. It is the result of culture largely, but also uh, it's the genes on one side and culture on the other meeting to allow for um, manifestations of mind that aren't actually bounded by the person in any clear sense. It was just I mean, the example I often use here, but there's so many others, is just the fact that we're following the rules of English grammar to whatever degree we are. It's not that we certainly haven't consciously represented these rules for ourselves. We haven't invented these rules. We haven't. I mean, there are norms of language use that we couldn't even specify because we haven't. We're not grammarians. We haven't studied this. We don't even have the right concepts, and yet we're following these rules, and we're noticing, we're noticing as an error when we fail to follow these rules. Um, and virtually every other cultural norm is like that. I mean, these are not things we've invented. You can consciously decide to scrutinize them and override them, but I mean, just think of any social situation where you're with other people and you're behaving in ways that are culturally appropriate, right? You're not being wild animals together. You're following. So you have some expectation of how you shake a person's hand and how you um, deal with implements on a table, how you have a meal together. Obviously, this can change from culture to culture, and people can be shocked by how different those things are, right? We all have foods we find disgusting, but in some countries, dog is not one of those foods, right? And yet, you and I presumably would be horrified to be served dog. Uh, those are not norms that they are outside of us in some way, and they're felt very viscerally. I mean, they're certainly felt in their violation. If you are, just imagine you're in somebody's home, you're eating something that tastes great to you, and you happen to be in Vietnam or wherever you didn't realize dog was potentially on the menu, and you find out that you've just eaten 10 bites of what is really a cocker spaniel, and you feel this instantaneous urge to vomit, right, based on an idea, right? Like so, like you're not the author of that norm that gave you such a powerful experience of its violation. And I'm sure we can trace the moment in your history, vaguely where it sort of got in. I mean, very early on as kids, you realize you're treating dogs as pets and not as food or as potential food. Um, but yeah, no, but the point you just made opens us to, like, we are totally permeable to a sea of mind.